I'm really excited today to have an opportunity to speak to Cynthia Lokker, who is a member of our McMaster community and our October Women in Tech Changemaker. And Cynthia, it's just a pleasure to have you here with us today. I know we're actually recording this. People who are watching this won't know this, but we're recording this on a Friday afternoon on one of those freak warm Fridays before we get into the wintry or more wintry season. So thank you for making time for us today, Cynthia, and joining in this conversation.
I'm just really happy to be here, Gayleen, and have an opportunity to chat with you about my work, and honestly, to be recognized as a change maker it's a lovely highlight on any Friday.
Well, that's great, and I have to say congratulations. The reason that you are a Women in Tech change maker here at McMaster is because of the amazing things that you're doing in your work, and also in your, if I can call it extracurricular. You're a very busy individual who's doing a lot of really interesting things, and I can't wait to tell people a little bit more about you, or have you tell them about yourself and some of the exciting things that you're doing. So maybe you can kick us off, if you wouldn't mind, Cynthia, telling us a bit about your position and your activities at McMaster, maybe how long you've been here, and some of those pieces first, please.
Sure. I actually joined McMaster in 2006. I came as a part-time research assistant for a faculty member in, it was then clinical epidemiology and biostats. We're now health research methods, evidence and impact. And that woman was Anne McKibben. And during my tenure as her research assistant coordinator, the role kind of kept growing as projects came up. She had just completed her PhD in medical informatics. And so she also developed this master's in eHealth program with some colleagues in the School of Business and in the School of Engineering, and this interdisciplinary program. So as a staff member, I took the program in order to learn more about really the role that I was working in, but to expand my own knowledge. And subsequent to her retirement, I've sort of stepped into the role of teaching in that master's in eHealth program now, and fostering our newer cohorts of students, which is amazing. And then working on my own research as well in knowledge translation and in mobile health and eHealth.
That is fascinating. There's a couple of things I really love there. One has to do with the fact that you came into a program and then had such an amazing mentor. And I think women know how important it is to have mentorship, whether it's male or female, but to have a really strong woman who was able to mentor you and really turn you on to a whole new area of study and research is really fascinating. And so can you talk a little bit about what it was that she sparked in you, or what was it about that area of interest that really grabbed you?
Well, I think part of it was its novelty, because lots of things are growing, and certainly I had a steep learning curve. I came from an ecology, plant sciences background, and the view was always that the research methods that I'd learned I could apply just in this new venue. And so a lot of the skills that I learned were research methods in health, looking at systematic reviews and just how we prioritize and how we do research especially in eHealth, because a lot of times people will tell you, oh, we should do this. Why isn't healthcare like, banking or booking a flight to Thailand or something? And it isn't, because it's complex. And we need to be careful about evaluating those things and providing the research for that. And I think that's really what spurred me on is just wanting to build the evidence of what we hope will improve our healthcare and our health outcomes. But we also want to have a really good, solid evidence base for that.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I am curious, and when I had originally read the bio that we've posted up on the cto.mcmaster.ca website, mhealth and eHealth. And, people have probably heard a lot more about eHealth or electronic health, but I think the mHealth, that mobile health, is a little bit different. So do you mind sharing a little bit about what's different about them? And is one more emerging than the other? And what do you think is the future of those two areas?
Right. So to me, eHealth is much more of an umbrella term, and mHealth kind of fits in there. So the M, as you said, is for mobile, and it's really about, the use of apps, the use of wearable technologies. That could be clothing, could be things like a Fitbit, and just how we gather. We're getting health information through all of these other sources that we never had before, right? Normally, it would be very much what happens in a patient-physician interaction. Whereas now there's this harnessing of information and this sort of ubiquitous use of technologies. A lot of people are carrying around smartphones, have apps to help with their health. So I definitely think mHealth is growing, and to me, the whole eHealth is almost becoming its health. Right. In just about every aspect of our healthcare, there is this technology component to it. And I feel like some will probably move away from that. And it's digital health is another very commonly used term.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
The term digital is sort of layered over everything that happens in technology these days, because we know we're all trying to get away of just the underpinning infrastructure and really trying to think about the way in which we're creating more opportunities for data, which is a lot of what you're talking about. It's different data points now and how we use that to help do evaluations of health. I would have to think that in the time that we're in now, where everything seems to have moved to virtual, I have a doctor's appointment coming up, and it is going to be on some kind, I don't know yet what the platform is that we're going to be using, but that's how everything seems to be happening now. So I think it's so timely to think about mobile health and mHealth using apps and things like that. So has it shifted some of your thinking, and do you feel like this is going to accelerate some of the adoption or the adaptation of mHealth?
Yes, well, especially the virtual care is definitely, and I guess that is mobile because you can often have that over your phone. It's certainly the majority of virtual care visits are actually happening by phone, traditional phone call, right? But there's certainly a lot of clinicians, physicians' offices who are starting to use the video calls, if that's supported by the patient and their technology as well. So definitely, the pandemic has driven an increase in that sector and in that field. Almost immediately, there were lots of startups popping up that have been kind of in the background, but there had to be some changes around billing, and physicians were sort of put into a position where it's we need to do it this way to continue to see our patients. And so it has overcome a lot of the barriers, like the adoption barriers that we had previously.
So, I have to anticipate that the evidence-based component of this, I mean, obviously you're going to have a lot more information you're going to be able to gather up as part of your research activity, but part of the challenge is, we know, especially when the intersection of healthcare and technology has to do with privacy and security. So I'm curious, from your perspective, what keeps you up at night when you're thinking about the way in which we're advancing in these areas, and what sort of things are you thinking about?
I'm less thinking about the privacy and security because I feel like our technical folks have got that covered. There's lots of there's legislation. Yeah, there's legislation in place, right? I mean, I think that I'm my sense is, and what we talk about privacy and security a lot in my class with my students, and it isn't always as big a deal as the outside world will let you know. For the most part, even if you ask patients, they just, please share my information so that you can give me better care. When I'm talking to my students, it's the same. It's different scenarios. They don't tend to have a lot of things they might want to hide or not share, and they're in a sharing sort of world, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's not what keeps me up so much. It's pushing things through too fast and then not recognizing what the unintended consequences might be.
Okay, sounds good. So I'm curious. So one of the things, obviously, you've been talking about your teaching. So you're an instructor and you're imparting this knowledge now to students. So what is it about that that area of your work that excites you, and do you see a lot of your students really similar to how you had a mentor? Do you feel like that there are people sort of rising up and saying, hey, I want to learn more, and are you implementing mentoring as part of that practice?
I absolutely am.
Oh,
That's
that's
my favorite part of my job.
good. That's
Yeah, I feel like the students they're this amazing resource of brain power and brilliant ideas. And, I've even adapted my teaching to try to be a bit more open about sort of what your course output might be, because they're going to come up with things that, my brain is a bit too limited to think about. And collectively, we can just make things more interesting that way. So no, I love giving them making opportunities for them. I'm very keen on community engaged work in my class. Whenever making that fit, that's been a journey to figure it out. But I feel that's added value to me. It's added value to our partners. It's added value to the students. So, and definitely because I'm also an academic advisor to a third of our students.
ah,
Yeah. So there's guiding them around, what is their career goal? How do we help get them there? How do we help them be successful in the program while building what it is that they want to get out of their career?
that's amazing, and I can only imagine how excited people are just to learn about this area, because for as we know, students now, our undergraduate students and our graduate students have always had access to technology, so their comfort with it as a tool to enhance or expand capability. Even for us, we're still learning, as you pointed out, right? But that is amazing, and I'm sure that they really are excited by the coursework that you have. Are you one of a few people doing this, Cynthia? I know obviously here at McMaster, this is your area of expertise. What's that look like in the broader landscape?
The eHealth.
Yeah, eHealth and mHealth, is that something that others, do you have a community of practice out there, and how do you engage with others around this?
Yeah, so certainly within McMaster, I feel like it's a growing community, because I don't know that there's lots of people who are doing work in the area, but we're not always connected, right? And sometimes that's time, but it's also just being in the same space. So certainly I try to go to those collision spaces, if you will, right? And so Canada does have an organization called Digital Health Canada, which provides, does conferences and has both academic but also a lot of industry connections. So I feel like that's always a work in progress, right? Um, but definitely through we also bring in guest lecturers to the course, but also our students do an 8-month internship. So there's a whole understanding the industry by hearing from experts is part of what also happens, which helps. It also helps you keep up to date, because it's an ever-changing field, and there's lots of other components of my job that need to get done, that sitting around and just, well, what's going on, having experts come in and talk and share their information, their knowledge and their experience, kind of also keeps me just current.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you talked a little bit about this in the bio that we did for you on the website, about the facilitating connections between people. And so being involved within the institution, but beyond the institution is a component of that. How much of your time can you dedicate to that? You're an awfully busy person with all the things that you do, and what do you get out of that? I'm
Mm.
always interested, because I think there's a part of this in trying to help people understand how important it is to network and to connect with people, but you're facilitating connections as
Mm.
well as connecting, and tell me more about that.
Yeah. So I think one example is Hacking Health Hamilton, which we're in a bit of a lull at the moment with COVID, but that I actually joined that organization partly to learn about what is the ecosystem here in Hamilton, specifically, and then also to foster those innovation ideas. So the premise of Hacking Health, it's a global movement, but we had this local chapter, is to create some of those spaces where you would get developers together with clinicians and students, and we'd have meetups again to just learn about what are the because if health is ehealth, that's pretty broad. Just different ways that people are using technology in healthcare to support them, either from a patient, from a physician, from a system point of view. And then we also had hackathons, which are a really very intense weekend-long experience, but also lots of fun. And again, that's a really great way to do some of that networking, to kind of get to know other people who are in the field. And we would call in mentors it's a lot of who do you know who could be a mentor, and that's how you grow your network.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
That's really exciting, and I know tiring, because you're right, hackathons tend to be 24 to 36 hours of nonstop go. Are you getting students from McMaster that participate in that, or is it community wide, or is it K-12? Like, how does that all work out?
Community wide, definitely, and even beyond just McMaster. I know that we even had people fly in sometimes to come to the hackathon, which it's a little bit surprising. And I do feel like there's quite an environment already for hackathons, because there's Delta Hacks, and the city also has a solution hackathon. The name's escaping me, but so there's, I feel like for students to find some of those opportunities, and you go out on a limb. My first hacking experience was actually just to go to a hackathon. I just signed up. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing here. But I thought, okay, I'm going to go see what the pitches are, what projects people are pitching to have others join. And one of them is actually the basis of a research grant that we have right now. So it was two clinicians who were pitching this idea that, if we had a better way of evaluating mobile health apps, because there's so many in the various app stores that don't really ever get tested. People use them, but you want to know, a physician wants to know, is this going to help my patient? Right? That's what they want to know. And so we're building a platform to then run trials of other apps to see if they actually do help support patient outcomes. And so that literally, I went to a hackathon, and now this is a research team with a grant, and so you don't actually know where the opportunities will take you.
I love that. I think that's so amazing. And it hits on so many different levels of the things that you've talked about that you get so much value out of: the connection piece, advancing research, and then in your area of interest around mHealth, eHealth, like that whole piece of how can we utilize technology to advance what we need. But the evidence-based piece that you talked about earlier, I think that's really amazing. And I think it's a great way of helping people to think differently. I think hackathons, a lot of people think of them, we know, I think more in an education base, that there's a lot more opportunity for people to really learn through the process, and for there to be outputs and outcomes from that. That's amazing to have something come out of that and then turn that into a research opportunity and some grant funding and what have you. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's kind of fun when you think back, right? Because sometimes you just kind of take for granted this is what we're still doing. And then remembering, oh yeah, we met at a hackathon. I didn't know these people before. And it's provided, again, tying in with the mentorship opportunities so for right now, I have an intern who's helping, plan our trial and working with the developer as we, test the app and just so she has more opportunities as well to learn and advance her own skills.
Good for you. Yeah. Good for you. And how lucky, how fortunate really that there's this pay it forward opportunity that you're continuing to activate through your own mentorship of others and allowing them to get excited about some different areas of research and technology as well as an underpinning. I mean, it's embedded in everything we do now, which you're obviously seeing very clearly. So I want to thank you so much, Cynthia. I think you're a huge inspiration, and I really hope that you brag about your hackathon background when you're talking to your students, because I think it's a lot of times I don't know that people would look at their instructor and imagine that you've built out this really amazing portfolio. So I hope you get to brag about that. It's really a pleasure to have you as part of our Women in Tech Changemaker series. Clearly, you are a change maker and you're changing people's thoughts around health and technology in health. You're also changing the way in which people engage and work together. I really think it's excellent work that you're doing. So thank you. I'm really blown away by this. And I learned a lot through this conversation.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy to have the opportunity. Partly, I'm happy to have this job where I can do that, right? I mean, people have the progression I've had here at McMaster was about people supporting me as I grew, and I feel like that the environment just fosters that, right? And so it's my job to make sure that we keep doing it that way.
Well,
yeah, it's lovely chatting with you, and I'm chuffed that I'm a change maker.
Well, I'm super impressed. We've got such a wonderful array of individuals who participated, and you certainly are, you're a wow. So thank you for making the time for us and for sharing your wisdom and your inspiration. And I can't wait to see what happens next. So we'll have to stay in touch and learn a little bit more. So thanks so much, Cynthia.
Right.
Really
Thank you, Gayleen.
I hope you have a wonderful weekend.
Oh, you too.
Okay.
Get out while it's warm.
Yes, that's exactly it. Thank you again.